Hi everybody! It is the peak of summer, and that means it's blackberry season. And I've got a recipe that I've been working on. It is so good, but I need a handful of blackberries to make it perfect. So, Luna and me are gonna head on down the hill here. We should be able to pick a couple of pounds of blackberries in just a few minutes, and then we'll head back and whip us up something delicious. Oh yeah, just like that. Woo, beautiful berry. Now, legend has it that those grocery store blackberries that you buy in the little plastic tub don't have any flavor at all. I wouldn't know anything about that living out here. And if you live somewhere where blackberries grow, then you already know that the blackberry is a top berry. Very, very flavorful. But if you live in a place where all you can get is crummy grocery store blackberries and they aren't any good, don't worry, because the recipe I'm doing today isn't actually a blackberry recipe. I'm going to use some blackberries in it, but you can make this recipe with just about any berry, so use whatever your best berries are, and you're going to do just fine. Little crab apples. Not bad. Almost ready. Deer will get all these before I get any, though, probably. They love these little things. Ew. Gross. Let's go. Alright, we did pretty good. Got about 3 pounds of berries here in about 30 minutes. I'll grab a couple of more handfuls on the way out, and then we will see you back at Kielbasa Corner, where I got a great recipe that everyone's gonna love. We're back from the berry patch, and now I have an absolutely sensational recipe for you. I'm making these little blackberry cheesecakes in a jar that everyone's gonna love. So let's get started. For me, the thing that makes this recipe so easy and fun is that we're gonna cook and serve it in these little half-pint mason jars. Now, you could break it down into these little puny things, but if you bring me a tiny cheesecake like this, well, it just may come to fisticuffs, so we're not gonna be bothering with these. For this recipe, you will need a sous-vide circulator, and this is kind of a specialty piece of kitchen equipment, but I really do recommend you get one of these if you can, because they are very handy to have on hand. Now, the prices on these are coming down all the time, and I will put a link in the description to this one. I don't have any special deals on it. I'm not a partner with these guys or anything, but I do really love this thing, and I use it all the time. These are nice and compact, so it's easy to store in a drawer in your kitchen. You've just got this little unit, and you can attach this to any big stock pot you have, and you got yourself a very versatile cooker that's great for a lot of different recipes and a lot of fun to experiment with as well. The first thing I'm going to do is to prepare and pre-bake the crust. Now, if you want to make this very simple, you can go crustless and save yourself some time, but I want that crunchy crust on the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and do this, but either way, you're going to have a great cheesecake. I'm making the standard graham cracker crust, but little chocolate cookies or vanilla wafers will work just as well. I'm sure there's some other things out there that you can think of to make a fun crust out of. And this recipe will make 3 little cheesecakes, and it takes 1 graham cracker per jar. So I'm gonna pulverize these 3 crackers, and it's such a small amount that I'm just gonna whack these with a hammer rather than breaking out the food processor. Now to put the crust together, we'll take our 3 graham crackers worth of crumbs, Add in 4 teaspoons of melted butter. Gonna be 2 teaspoons of sugar. And if you're using unsalted butter, you want a tiny pinch of salt, like 1/8 of a teaspoon. But if you're using salted butter, don't even worry about it. And we'll just toss that all together until all the crumbs are nice and buttery. There we go. Now I do like to coat the bottom of the jar with just a little bit of butter before I pack the crust in. It probably wouldn't stick anyway, but just in case, you wouldn't want to be pounding away at the bottom of these jars with a fork or spoon trying to get that bite out of there. So just a little bit of butter in the bottom. There's probably enough left over of this melted butter to get the job done. Now I'm just gonna do your best to divide up that crust mixture evenly between your 3 jars. And now you want to find a tool that can fit down in here to kind of tamp that crust down a little. I can use the plunger from my meat grinder, but I'm sure you've got something you can figure out here. You could even use your fingers if you want, but this will make them nice and flat. And just pack that down a little. You want it to be kind of firm, but not really hard. It's pretty thick, but I kind of like it because it's only right around this bottom area. I think that's gonna be all right. You can go thinner if you like. It's your little cheesecake. And now, I'm gonna pre-bake these in a 350-degree oven for 15 minutes. And then we'll take them out and let them cool off. Now let's take a look at the ingredients for the filling, and I do believe this is the easiest cheesecake I've ever put together that didn't come in a box. And it's also really nice to have a recipe where I don't have to make an entire cake. We're just a family of 2 and a dog, and even though we would get through that entire cake, that would be wrong. So let's start right here with the cream cheese, and this is 1 8-ounce brick of full-fat cream cheese. I wouldn't skimp on that. This is 1/4 cup of white sugar. I've got 1/4 cup of sour cream, also full fat. And here are 2 eggs, and I probably won't use all of this. What I'll do is I will scramble these eggs up and then measure out 1/4 cup of that egg, and that's what we'll put in there. And this is 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour. Now, this is optional. If you want your cheesecakes to be that kind of really dense cheesecake where you cut into them and they kind of go thump, then you're going to want to use the flour. If you want a little bit more delicate while still fairly dense cheesecake, a little creamier cheesecake, then you can leave this out and the recipe works out just fine. I'll add in 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and for some flavoring, the zest of half of a lemon, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, which seems to be the standard for every recipe, no matter how big or small. Now we'll start, by blending the cream cheese and sugar and that 1/4 teaspoon of salt together. No need for a big stand mixer with this little recipe. A little hand blender's gonna work just fine. And we're just gonna whip this together until it's nice and smooth. it's gonna go real easy for you if you start with softened cream cheese. Just leave it out for an hour or so. And now I think we're good to go in with the rest of the ingredients. There's the sour cream. We've got our 1/4 cup of egg. I am gonna put in the flour, just a tablespoon to get that really dense cheesecake. Now we get that lemon zest in there, just half of the lemon. Or if you like it very lemony, go ahead and use all the zest. Ain't no skin off my back. Save that lemon, we're gonna use that later. And that vanilla. Okay, now we're gonna blend this together again until it's nice and smooth. You don't want to overwork it though. So once everything is smoothed out and there's no lumps, then you're good to go. That's pretty good. This is about as thick as pancake batter. Now, these have been baked and cooled. You can feel now that crust is nice and firm down in the bottom. Okay, so now we're just gonna fill these up just to the bottom thread there to allow for some expansion. And we're gonna use a nice new lid and a very good ring here. You don't need to worry about sterilizing this. We're not canning this to preserve it or anything, but you do want everything to be very clean. Just tamp those down just a little bit. Pop some of the air bubbles. Now make sure the rims are completely clean. Any oil or moisture. And then just snug those up, not super tight. This one's fighting me a little bit. Whenever I get a ring that doesn't go on smooth, I'm done with that ring. I just pitch that one and get a different one. There we go, much better. Just a little beyond finger tight. Now we're ready to cook these. So I've got my circulator set to 175 degrees Fahrenheit, and 80 C will be close enough if you're using that system. Well, that is hot, so I'm gonna use my canning tongs to drop these down in there. Make sure they are completely submerged. And of course, I doubled up that recipe today. And now you want to cover this up to keep evaporation down. And these go for 2 hours at 175 degrees Fahrenheit. And just like that, these are done. Of course, these need to cool all the way down, so I'll leave them out at room temperature for a little bit. Then I'll pop them into the refrigerator overnight. And in the meantime, let's take a look at that blackberry topping. So I've got 2 cups of the blackberries that we just picked, and this is 1/4 cup of white sugar. And you can adjust that depending on how sweet your berries are. And this is where our unzested lemon comes in. So I want to get a couple of teaspoons of lemon juice in there. A very, very small pinch of salt. That just kind of enhances sweetness. And I'll turn this on to kind of medium-high heat until this comes up to a boil, and then we'll drop that heat down and let this simmer. Now once this gets nice and bubbly, drop that heat down to low. I will let those simmer for probably about 5 minutes. Blackberries, blueberries, the juices come out of there pretty quick. Strawberries take a little longer, maybe 10 minutes simmer time for a strawberry. But other than that, it's the same recipe. And now the berries have softened up and a lot of the juice is pulled out of them. So now we want to thicken that juice up. And for that, we're going to use some cornstarch. And usually it takes about a teaspoon, but I always prepare extra because sometimes the berries are a little juicier, and if I need some, I'll have it ready to go. So we need to mix that cornstarch with some cold water. Just a couple of tablespoons. Enough to dissolve the cornstarch, and you want this to be thin and lump-free. Alright, now bring up the heat just a little bit, and I'll add in maybe half of this. I started with 2 teaspoons of cornstarch in here. Keep it stirred up in there, it likes to settle to the bottom. Put in about half of that and stir right away. And then you really need to wait for this to come back up to a boil to see how thick it's going to end up being. Oh, I want it to be a little bit thicker. We'll go in with a little more of my cornstarch mixture. Now we're getting there. And just a touch more, I think. We're looking for a nice, thick berry gravy. Oh yeah, there we go. See that? That's what I'm looking for. Perfect. Kill the heat. Now let this cool down at least until it gets to room temperature before you put it on top of your cheesecake. It's time to check out our tiny cheesecakes. These do seal up fairly tight. Oh, and there you go. Look at that. You're not gonna get that little toasty top like you do with the baked cheesecake. But you know what else you're not gonna get is a cracked top like you often do with a baked cheesecake. And you're also never gonna have one that's underdone and pudding in the middle. It's gonna be cooked perfectly every single time. Beautiful stuff. Now let's bring in that fresh blackberry topping. And these jars are perfectly suited to hold that topping right in there. Let's see if I can get one of these out of here clean. I'll take a thin knife, run it down around the edge. Now I'm going to cover this up again. Now here is a little bit of hot water, not boiling water, just hot out of the tap. And I'm just going to try to rest this up as high as that crust goes. Let's see what happens if I leave that in there for just a few minutes, see if I can loosen that up and pop that out of there. All right, I'll say it's been 3 minutes or so. Oh, look at there. That's cool. Now let's see if we can do this old deal right here. Oh, hey, oh, look at that. Cool. Now I'm definitely gonna serve these in the jar, but this one I can dress up for TV. let's see how we did. That stuff looks incredible. It is nice and firm. Check out that bite. Ooh. Dang. Oh yeah. You know, with a lot of recipes, if you take shortcuts or simplify things, the results can be slightly less than. But this is every bit a legit great cheesecake. It is perfectly cooked. The texture is kind of dense, but also fluffy and perfectly smooth. And the blackberries are just the right topping for this season. I'm sure if you leave the toppings off and leave these sealed up, those are gonna last for at least a week in the refrigerator. So what a great make-ahead dessert. And they are perfectly portable and travel ready. You can even pack one of these in your pocket. You roll up on the scene with a pocket cheesecake. That's legendary stuff. This is an extraordinary recipe. It is fantastic and it's so easy to make. If you don't have a sous vide circulator, I encourage you to get one if you can. Because sometimes getting a new tool in the kitchen just gives you some inspiration, some spark to try out new things. And if you do have one, you owe it to yourself to give this one a try, and I know you're gonna love it. Thanks for watching.